Tune into the final take with MK Mariner every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Hello and warm welcome to yet another edition of the Final Take with me, Seni MK Mariner, from our virtual studios here in Seattle. Today's discussion is featuring three distinguished environmental activists and land rights activists joining me from different continents. First, Dave Mane, who is a land rights activist and a lead researcher for the new report on land rights issues. He will be taking us through the report. Also joining us live from New York is Omar Malmo Sambu, a prominent environment and ecological activist who is very passionate about environmental issues in the Gambia. So for the next 1 hour, this gentleman will discuss with me about pressing land issues currently unfolding in the Gambia. Gentlemen, welcome to the Final Take with me, Seni Marina.
Thank you, Seni.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead, Omar.
For those joining us, this is the Final Take Arena. Thank you for your time, joining this very important discussion this morning, live streaming on Alcamba Times Facebook page. As I said, for those watching, this is the Final Take with me. In the studio today, we have two distinguished gentlemen, Dave Mane speaking to me all the way from UK, and Malmo Sambu also live from New York, United States. So gentlemen, once again, welcome to the Final Take.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marina. Thank you.
Malmo, can you hear me?
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. So let's dive right into Dave. Dave, I would like to start with you. As a lead rights specialist, can you provide us with an overview of the current land rights situation in the Gambia as per your report you author with the communities in the coastal areas in the Gambia? You are the lead author. Take us through your report that was released last week.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marina, for this opportunity. I'll have to, from the very beginning, I have to say that it was a joint effort. Obviously, being the lead research, but I had a whole host of people on the ground. Even Omar, he was involved in the background, so I liaised with him as well. And we got Ahmad Manjang on the ground. We got some guys all the way across Combo, and even in Fonyi. We had people even in Nyomi as well. So it's a cross-section of the whole Gambia, really, to be honest. Because the land problem is now moving to Fonyi and Nyomi. So I think it's about time they are a little bit more proactive. So yeah, and I think they're doing that. There's a guy called Ablai Bojang, I think. So he's got this Fonyi group. So yeah, we also liaison with him in the background. Yeah, but even though it's my name on the paper, I'm gonna say that it's a joint effort. It's a collaboration effort with lots of people on the ground. Obviously, you don't see their name. Yeah. To give you a little overview or brief overview, if you want to call it that, about securing futures, land rights, active collection. The land issue in Combo has been going on for a while. I mean, since Omar was quite young, to be honest. So yeah, it's always been a persistent headache for us in Combo.
Mhm.
And so we felt like this is probably about time when the state published what they call a draft land policy. We thought this is the the most opportune time for us to take this opportunity with both hands and then try and basically, provide our recommendation, our feedback, and then we see what they say, what they do, what they're gonna do with it, because we took them on the offer. So for the very first time in my lifetime, anyway, that's the very first time I've been aware the Gambia as a country trying to implement a policy and they sought feedback from the public. But then obviously that could be because I left the Gambia so long ago. I don't know. But this is from my very, very first experience. So I think we have to give the devil its due. Yeah. So it's a lot of things in the draft policy we're not happy with. But that's what that's what the draft policy is all about anyway. So the fact that they gave us the opportunity to say, critique it, go over it, and then provide, give feedback, give recommendations. We say thank you for that. So that's what we've done. But it's a work in progress. I think there's a lot that needs to be done with that draft policy. And I think Omar and others, they got their own speciality, obviously. I mean, Omar, he goes both ends. He's environmentalist, also he's a land rights activist. So yeah, so he's a specialist in both.
Dave, the report accused government of systematic land grabbing without providing, alternative to traditional landholders in the coastal areas, even though the report did not only focus on the land grabbing in coastal areas, but also other parts of the Gambia, like Fonyi, the Kiangs and other places. What methodology do you use to come to conclusion about how government is grabbing land from traditional landowners in the Gambia?
Okay. I mean, I've got to be very clear. I've got to be very, very honest. Our focus was on Combo because Combo is unique in that we are the only victim of the State Land Act. The State Land Act only nationalized lands in Combo, not Combo South and Combo Central, not even Combo East. So we're quite unique in that. So that's why my focus was so central on that upside. We need to repeal State Land Act, but we need to amend it drastically. Okay, so it's not like the rest of the country, everybody was our concern. I mean, if you read the report, you'll see we're talking about people in Fonyi and Sanyang, Ozikolan and Nyomi, because the threat is going there now, but it's going to be in Chiang and Jara and William, everywhere. We'll go everywhere. So if you look further deep into the report, the context is quite broad on that end. But we have to be very specific, and then we have to be very, very deliberate on that. And then I make no excuses for that. The State Land Act, the victims are only Combonkers. So it's only Combo whose lands the state says you've nationalized. So it's nowhere else. I don't think it's actually I don't want to get very emotional here, but it's criminal. All right. So we try to be very academic here and try to use language which is natural and nuanced. But fundamentally, if you go down with it, I mean, it's illegality, really, basically. It's injustice. It's discrimination.
David, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Dave, we'll come back to you. It seems... yeah, I can hear you. I say I will come back to you. It seems one of our guests, Omar Sao, who is also another prominent environmental activist, just joined us right now live from Seattle, Washington State. Omar, welcome to the final take with me, Seni Marina. We will come to you later, but just to let our viewers know that you are also here for this very important discussion. So I will go to Omar Malmo Sambu, who is also a very prominent environmental activist. Omar Malmo, as an environmental activist, how do you view the intersection of land rights and environmental issues? What are the main challenges we are facing as a country in this regard?
All right. Thank you, Saini. Let me know if you can hear me. It's good to be on this platform with, AJ and as well my uncle.
Yeah,
So,
I can hear you very well.
first, to make it very clear, I do not speak for Bruford, even though I'm a native of, and I know it's one of the biggest victims of, government, let's say, kind of victimization when it comes to lands and, land resources. But in this aspect, first, let me, give a context where you asked my uncle about, methodologies. So when you asked about methodologies as for getting to the results or the reports that we are getting or generating, you would understand that land issues in the
Mhm,
Gambia cannot
mhm,
have methodological monocropping, in a sense that land
mhm,
issues in let's say in Kudang are not similar to land issues
mhm,
in Brufut and land issues in Sanyang. Now, there are communal
mhm,
land conflicts and land issues among family members, and in combo, in context, is
mhm,
government land grabbing or government, dispossessing, natives of their lands. So government versus communities and
mhm,
communities versus each other and intra-community conflicts over lands, you cannot use the same methodology to actually get to a conclusion. So in this, the focus is on state
mhm,
monopolized lands within communities. And if you look at it intergenerationally, lands primarily belong to
mhm,
communities prior to Gambia being Gambia as a republic. Brufut existed before Gambia was a republic in 1970.
mhm,
Sukuta existed before Gambia was a republic. Let's say probably these
mhm,
communities existed before 1965, when there was nothing like Gambia as a sovereign country, was an
mhm,
independent country. So these communities own these lands from the beginning. Now, what the Gambia government did is basically to develop policies to dispossess the people of Congo of their, sovereign rights, which is to bring in, policies like, let's say, they're
mhm,
building estates and they say this lands belong to the government, or they say, TDA, tourism development area, bringing in new policies. But those policies primarily, are meant for touristification. Now, if you look at the touristification process, it has led to
mhm,
gentrification in our communities, and that led to a resultant effect of displacement, as well as increased poverty and increasing communal
mhm,
conflict over land and land resources. So the impact on the environment, you look at land. Land is more or less, in economics, we said land is a factor of production, and land is the major factor of
mhm,
production on which all other factors are dependent on. You cannot do any economic activity outside of your environment and your land. There is nothing you can talk about, resources, either mineral resources or whatever resources. They are all within and embedded in land as a factor of production. So if you dispossess the community of land, you're dispossessing them of their ability to have housing,
mhm,
agriculture, and the socioeconomic activities. In short, you're just sending them to the graves. Because land is the single most important thing on which every human activity is done. So the government of the Gambia, what they did successfully was to develop policies that dispossess the people of Combo of their, birthrights, and kind of impose or inject, this, when you impose those kind of things to a community, what do? You more or less dispossess them of their rights, and then actually, impose, how do I put this in context? Probably, let's say, homelessness. Because if you deny me of my land rights, take me out of
mhm,
what rightfully belongs to me, you're already taking my agricultural land, you're taking my socioeconomic, probably, rights, as well as, you're sending me homeless, because that is more or less I become homeless in my own community.
mhm,
Now, gentrification in that regard, if you look at Brufut Heights, for example, the people who live there have higher economic, power compared to relatively people like us who live in the community, born and raised.
mhm,
We probably do not have equity when it comes to financial muscles. In my communities where people are selling land for 5, 6, 7 million, where just not too long ago, when I was born, people were giving lands
mhm,
to people within my community for less than $100 plus, just colonels. So traditionally or customarily, people are giving land and place to live for
mhm,
nothing. So the government develop policies, seize land from the people, displace the
mhm,
people, inject gentrification and touristification in a way that it only empowers government and the elites who have the money. But the local indigenous people who actually own these lands are not compensated. Instead, they are tortured on their own land. And of course, their agricultural production and productivity goes down, and they don't even have where to actually do any farming. Because if you go to Brookwood now, there are no farmlands, there are no grazing lands. Everywhere is a settlement. And that tells you that this is a time bomb, because the government of the Gambia does not understand that we need to have what we call a land map that indicates agricultural land, grazing land, settlements, and all that. But anybody can turn their own land into whatever they feel like, because there is no, map that indicates that these are agricultural lands and these are, let's say mining lands. And anybody can come into our communities and start mining, because government dispossesses the communities and instead use it for government purposes. They turn around and sell it, and probably, people within government coming and sharing land in our own community, like Brookwood Heights, that ministers are sharing lands. So ecologically, the damage it is going to
Absolutely.
cause is like
Malmo, you're touching a very interesting area there. So we're going to drive into that, later in the program, because the comprehensive report that David Mane co-lead, lead researcher for that report, also touched about how land was grabbed away from people of Bruford that was meant for them, and then given to a real estate developer who now sell those properties at a very high price. Thank you for that intervention. If Omar Sao is available, Omar, I would like to ask you. You have also done quite a lot of work on environmental issues, more especially in the coastal areas where the threat are, very visible, with the fish meal, with the global mining operation. Omar, what role, are the communities playing to ensure that they protect themselves from these environmental issues that is affecting the coastal areas?
Well, thank you so much, MK Mariana, and then thank you, brother David, and also my senior landed brother, Mr. Omar Manmo, for this exciting and interesting discussion today. Building off of what Omar has said, looking at Burufuru, Sanyang, Gunjur, Katong, and then other places, the communities are so disenfranchised. They are so disunited because of political influence and because of economic muscle that this business pumped into some few individuals in local communities in the Gambia. The communities are no more united. So it's mostly some few individuals who become very vocal, who are the forefront in advocacy. If you go down to Burufuru, it might be only few choosing people who, because of their own personal integrity, who will be at the forefront. And even for the family level, you can have your own family members or your own Kabila to tell you, what, you cannot do the whole fight for the village. Stay away from this issue. If you have, if you continue with this legacy, you're not going to live long. You're going to die along the way. They're going to scare you out. But, hey, but you look at it, it's not difference in Burufuru, it's not difference in San, it's not difference in Gunju, it's not difference in Karton. Because in Karton, when the fish meal started, mushrooming in the Gambia, in Spania, in Gunjur, and then when they started a new one in Tangier area, the same people in our own communities will try to say, hey, you know what? Do not go into this fight. Back out. These people are here for development. You cannot fight with the government. So, which means whether it's the government officials, whether it's our...
So Omar, you think the community is complicit? You think the community is also complicit in this?
Exactly, because look at the dynamics in our local communities, yes? Most of the people are not much informed about environmental ramifications, about environment exploitations in the Gambia. They are ill-informed. Then that coupled with the political, misconception that they receive from the elected officials and also artificial lures, because this will happen. Anywhere the government want to have an involvement or an intervention of doing these illicit operations, they will go through what the local architectures we have in the country, the Alcalos, the Safos, the Kabila Kebas, and also mostly at the family head level. They will make sure they put the body, the conventional structure government system in the country, interfering with the customary administrative system in the country. And if that won't happen, they will get the support, the backing of the Alcalos. Look at this chief. The chiefs are like what? Government elected individuals. Whereby historically, this is not the dynamics. If the chief of Kombosar, for example, has been elected by Adam Barrow to be the chief of the whole region, whatever the government want, whether we need or not, what is going to work in favor of that? We have seen in the Gambia whereby even the Alikalos, in fact, have the political bargain of the government, whereby traditional, this is not the way. So if there is something in the community whereby the young people or the people who have the integrity to stand against those ones, usually there is this contention between the voice and as well as what the leadership in the country, in the community. This thing has been an issue with the fish mills. It has been the same issue with the land acquisition within the communities. It has been the same issue with the mining within the communities. Anytime you stand to raise public awareness about these issues, you hardly have support from the local leadership, from the local organized groups within the community. This includes even like the VDCs. So all of these setups we have in the local community, whether it's the Ward Development Council, whether it's local village development committees, whether it's alcaloships or the chief, you hardly have support whereby there can be this robust, contention and saying, hey, you know what, this is not in favor of the village. What kind of mechanisms do you have here? A clear example is the recent approval for dredging operation in Gunjur Sambiang. The alcalo of the community only got the approval when the letter was CC'd to the alcalo. There was no community consultation. And in that regard, all what the community understands, like, what can we have from this?
I remember we wrote a absolutely. I remember we wrote a comprehensive story about that operation about the deep sea port. The communities were not even aware that they are going to be. There was no feasibility study. The Ministry of Transport just came and were like, we're going to do a deep sea here without the community consultation. Many thanks, Omar. I will come back to you, David. Can you elaborate on how current policies in the Gambia address? Omar, okay. David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I want you to elaborate on how. Current land policies in the Gambia address or fail to address land right, particularly for marginalized communities, because you have reviewed the new land policy. Seriously and came up with recommendation. Where did it fail to address land right, particularly for marginalized communities?
Okay. Just to augment what Omar said earlier on, Sambu, he was talking about these communities existed before the Gambia. Yeah, but he was talking about actually the Republic. But actually, these communities existed before the Gambia, what they call the Anglo-British agreement that actually established the Gambia in 1889. So that's 135 years old. The Gambia is 135 years old. Burfoot is over 500 years old. So is Sukuda, so is Sajang. They're probably even older than that. So basically something that's 135 years old cannot invalidate something that is 500 years. It's illogical. Yeah. So there was no Gambia as such. You had Combo, you have Fonyi, you had Jara, you had Kia. So they amalgamated them through the Anglo-British agreement of 1889. So it's very, very important people understand this. Yeah, I think sometimes we don't put this into the equation when we talk about the Gambia. It's like, listen, these communities existed. Their ownership of the land predated the Gambia. Yeah, by 300 years, 400 years, 500 years. So nothing that is 135 years old can invalidate something that is 500 years, 300 years old. It's illogical. Okay, so I just wanted to just augment what my.
So meaning these communities has been in existence well before people even think about policies and programs on land ownership in the country.
Yeah, I mean, the first land laws, if you want to call them, was from 1945. So that was when the British had basically did a land legislation, but that's only got to do with Banjul and Combo St. Mary's. Okay, so the Combos was in part of it. From Joshua onwards, that was in part of it. Then later they moved them up all the way to Abuko. Okay, so then the State Land Act 1991 is just basically a renewal of that. But in this, in 1991, what is different was like we had the World Bank and IMF. They imposed what they call structural adjustment programs. So this is market liberal values, neoliberal values to say you have to privatize this and that and that and that. Those are the conditions for us to give you loans. Okay, so Jawara implemented it, but then Yaya is only during Yaya Jammeh's reign, if you want to call it reign or rule, that's when it exploded. But during Jammeh's time, during Jawara's time, there was not that problem. I mean, we had the implementation of State Land Act 1991, which was forced on them, by the way. It's from the IMF and World Bank. So that's what it is. I also wanted to, if you don't mind again, just want to touch on what Omar said, Saho.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because both of them are environmental ecology and others. This this draft policy is incidental, by the way. It's not an initiative by the state law, the Gambia government or the Gambia Ministry of Lands. It's actually the Ministry of Environment. Basically, West African, it's WACA, it's called WACA. I don't know what it means anyway, but it's West African coastal reintegration or try to strengthen. All right, so they have to give them some funds. I think they actually planting some mangroves and stuff. They are trying to strengthen the environment, and they realize that the Gambia doesn't have a national land policy. So it was an afterthought for them. It was a condition on them to do it. You have to do this, otherwise you won't have the funding. Okay, so it's not their initiative, by the way.
So meaning this is not even government idea to come with a land policy, a new land policy, but international partners were the ones who were helping them to get it right.
It was a condition. It was what we call incidental. It was a condition to say before we can continue the funding for this WACA project, this and this condition have to be met. So one of those conditions is like there have to be a national land policy. So they run to get a draft done. Okay, they've done a good work on the draft. You have to give them that. Okay, but for us as a land right activist from Combo, who's basically my community is suffering big time because they nationalized my land. So my focus is my focus is very, very how do you want to call it, sharp. The focus is sharpened, it's centralized, it's central on that. Okay, but that is not to say that I'm not concerned about what happens in Jara or Kia, because whatever happens in Combo now, if you don't fix it, that's where it's going to lead. So I think I tell people this is a national issue. Don't think that it's affecting Combo. It's got nothing to do with me. So I think those are three things I wanted to basically just to augment what these two gentlemen said. That the Gambia is only 135 years old. Okay. Also, this land policy is not an initiative by the state. It was actually incidental. It was a condition as part of the funding. I think it's quite important for us to make this very, very clear.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for those joining us now. This is the final take with me, Seni Marena. I have three gentlemen in the studio with me today. Omar Sao, live from Seattle, Omar Malmo Sambu from New York, and Dr. David Mane speaking Dave. From UK. Omar Malmo, Dave Mane from the UK. Thank you, Dave. Omar Malmo, I'm coming to you right now. We have seen that the Gambia is currently facing a lot of environmental issues. We have seen that the Ministry of Environment, whose sole responsibility is to protect our flora and fauna, are found of, destroying our forests by giving a certain portion of the land to investors and real estate development. How concerned are you with the dwindling forest cover in the Gambia? Do you think that we are on the right track, in protecting our forests, or we are on the way of destroying our forests with the current environmental issues unfolding?
All right, thank you very much. First, let me just quickly say that policy development should not be guided by either you got Western influence or, by projects that, force you to actually develop a policy. Policy development should be informed by empirical research that validates that there are problems, and these existing problems require policy directions to actually solve them. And which we would all agree that the Gambia has for a long time have, land-related, policy issues. And that definitely needed some policy development. The methodology used in developing the policy, I wouldn't know, not very much familiar with, but I hope the communities were in-depthly, involved in the development or in the process. If the communities were not, who sits in your corner to develop a policy for us? Who sits in your corner to tell our grandparents that, no, they don't own their lands, it now belongs to you? So this should be more or less a consultative process where communities, customary, leadership is deeply involved in the development of land-related policies in the Gambia. It cannot be the elite, because land belongs to these communities, and we cannot always subject the communities to, oh no, we are the ones that went to school, we know. No. The origin of all knowledge is from communities, and these communities have sufficient knowledge about their lands and whatever belongs to them. So first, I need to establish that I don't think there was enough consultation to communities when it comes to development of this policy. And I did not think this policy was developed based on empirical research and evidence that the Gambia needs a land, policy. But primarily because it's a donor-dependent policy that is there to serve the purpose of the donor to continue getting funding for a particular project. So WACA is a $45 million environmental project under the CPC unit of the Ministry of Environment. But it is the same Minister of Environment who is actually turning our protected forest ecologists into settlements and more or less even trying to sell some of them to business, partners who are more or less funders of the regime. So it's the same. No, when we talk about Rohijon Manjang, I would just take that out of, common conversation. But this is one of the most incompetent ministers that ever served as a minister in the Gambia. Because this is the person who brought in a soldier from the military barracks as director of forestry and told the people of the Gambia in the National Assembly that the entire forestry are indisciplined people, and I brought in a soldier to restore discipline. But this is the minister that told you that for the last 3 years he's been minister, the Department of Forestry was never able to send her a single proposal. That already indicates her failure as a minister and her incompetence, not really the people she's referring to as they could not give me a proposal. That means he was unable to do anything. So that tells you within the past 3 years, even this WACA project was actually a concept developed by the previous minister, and then it came into fruition now, including even the new Ministry of Environment building. So that tells you that the leadership at the Ministry of Environment is not capable of running our government. This is basically the same minister who runs projects and develop documents to protect land rights, but they do not involve communities. But it's the same minister who destroys our forests and, of course, get involved in issues relating to dealing with timber, which Gambia does not have any timber that it sells to China, but the Gambia still is one of the biggest exporters of timber in the sub-region. Quite ironical. So when we look at it ecologically, nobody is safe under Rohijon Manjang and the regime when it comes to environmental issues. We have a lot of pollution happening within the coastal communities from the fish meal factories. None of those fish meal factories to date have what we call a functional waste treatment plant. They are dumping biological waste, raw sewage into the ocean. Simply because the Gambia, let's say, from the, advocacy point, they do not have laboratories to test some of these things. And then environment, you cannot just be, saying things out of nothing, because they need to be backed by empirical facts and evidence. Like I said earlier on, land issues in the Combo is not the same as land issues in let's say, Sambang or other places. I have done, 3 research papers on land issues. One in Sanyang, looking at it as just a single whatever, and then one in Bruford, looking at it from the light of gentrification in Bruford Heights, as well as Sambang in CRR, where we look at these are Mandinka and Fula communities where the influence is basically climate induced, that people can no longer have productive farmlands along the coast areas, and what they are doing, they are going upland, and upland used to be like grazing lands. So there is conflict between the nomadics and the crop producers. But in Congo, it's about survival. It's about where we are going to live. It's about government dispossessing our people of their lands and taking it not for government purpose, but for ministers to share it among themselves. This is exactly what Rohijon Manjang is doing. They destroyed part of Salaji forest to give it a business person who is more or less a funder of the NPP. So it's not about what is good for the Gambia. It's about politics with national and natural resources of our country. It is the Gambia where people come into the National Assembly, voted by our people, share our state lands that belongs to every one of us. It is when people are voted into government that the president would go and take a land at the prime location and give it to himself. Like the opposition will also go wild in government.
So Omar,
communities are left with nothing.
What is the law saying about state land? How can state grab a community land and classify it as a state land? Because what happening in Salaji right now, the state claimed that, the houses that were demolished are state properties. How do state come to conclusion of grabbing community land and turning them into state land?
It's very simple.
And defeating the purpose of creating recreational facilities, but giving those particular land, to their relatives or people they are close to. What is the law saying? Maybe Dave should be able to answer this question well. What is the law saying, about a state land?
Okay. Again, we go back to the 1991 State Land Act. But it's just like what we call in England a hodgepodge. I don't know if you guys use that terminology in America. It's colloquial. It just means a whole heap of rubbish put together, really. It's a hodgepodge. So basically, they have this all-encompassing justification for taking any land, state land. And so they can also state land, but the state land, if you have to take my land on the state land, that means basically saying that my constitutional right has been abrogated. But the Constitution said my right to my land, that's in the Constitution. But the state land should not, my constitutional right should not come secondary to the State Land Act. So you don't have to be a lawyer to understand this. It's basic common sense. But they use this hodgepodge, every argument State Land Act, and you talk to them like, no disrespect to them. I've been doing research. I go to Gambia I was there August and September, I try to get some data. And it's only when you go to the Ministry of Lands, you understand, they don't actually understand. Yeah, you got people working in the Ministry of Lands, they don't understand the law itself. And then you got to be careful how you talk to them because you don't want to come across as arrogant. But it's a shock to you. Yeah, these are our state officials. They don't understand. They would, State Land Act. What does the State Land Act actually mean? I can take any land and say, no, not necessarily. You have to speak to lawyers. Do you speak to your lawyers? That the State Land Act doesn't come. Basically, my right, it doesn't come secondary to the State Land Act. Do you understand that? As my constitutional right, Section 22, doesn't come secondary to the State Land Act. Okay, coming back to Salaji again, like I think Omar touched on it earlier on, and it is common knowledge in the Gambia. So they will just designate a piece of land to say, okay, this is for common purpose, if you want to call it that. And then 2 years down the line or a few years down the line, they'll just parcel them off and they give it to their friends and family and connected individuals. And then when they said, oh, this certain part of the land, like let's say 50 by 50 ink, that's meant to be a mosque. And you go down there 2 years down the line, somebody's got a house. But this land belongs to the guys in Sukuta. And they have to expand. Yeah, because they don't fit where they are in their community. So naturally, what do? You expand out. So you expand to the farmlands. So these are the indigenous. So you basically come knock down their houses, and that's my concern. So I'm from Brufut. You knock down my house. Sani Marina is from where you from? Kudan, you said, yeah? You like my friend, my late friend Chejao, yeah?
Kudan, yeah.
Okay. So yours is standing. Yeah, yours is standing, but I'm the indigent. That land belongs to me and my family for 12 generations, 300 years, 500 years. Saying is a Gambian has me, no problem. But saying got ancestral land wherever you came from. So my kids got nowhere to go. But when there's a problem, we have congestion, there's not enough land in Combo. Saying you can always go back, or his kids got to go back to where they come from. And I think we have to be very, very frank about this. That's why we need to try to involve other people. Stand shoulder to shoulder with us. If you come from Kudan, you come from Yamina, you come wherever you come, say, hold on. Just look at the maths here. Just simple basic arithmetic and basic human decency. And 20 years down the line, you do population modeling, you do economic modeling. There's no space in the Gambia. There's no space in Combo. But my kids can go back to Kudan. But where those Dave and Omar's kids go from? Where do they go? Saho and Sam, where do their kids go? So I think our people also need to try and put that into the equation when they think about it. Listen, I want to live in Combo. We know why. Because it's accident of history and geography. If the British had not settled in Combo, probably the problem will be in Kudan if they had lived in Kudan. Because human beings are human beings. We move, it's intrinsic to us, it's in our nature, it's inherent. You try to improve yourself. That's why I'm talking to you from Hampshire in the UK. That's why you're talking to me from Seattle in the US. And that's where my nephew was talking to me from New York. And then Asaho was talking to me from Seattle. We move to places to improve our lot and our people. So people come to Combo, it's micro and macro level. It might be a smaller level to that, but it's all the same human evolution. So that fundamentally is still the same. You always want to improve your lot. But that's why we can't just move to England. We cannot just move to America. That's why they have mechanisms to control. Yeah. So if you have mass migration, that's going to be a problem. So we have the same thing in Gambia. Yes, we all are Gambians, but we all come from places in the Gambia. And our regions existed before the Gambia. The Gambia is a colonial. It's a product of colonialism. So it's actually, if you want to be very militant,
absolutely,
you want to be very, very politically militant about it, You can say it's just a socio-political configuration, which is superficial. Okay? We accept it. We say we're all in the Gambia, but that doesn't mean that my land rights has been abrogated. No, it doesn't mean that. So this information, this message need to be, everybody needs to say this very loudly and clearly to the government. Yes, we all live in this superficial, political, a consequence of colonialism. We accept it.
Bubble.
But it doesn't mean that it belongs to me. No, you can take that from me. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Dave, thank you very much for that intervention. I will come to Omar Sao. Omar, I see you are struggling with some sound issues and then lightning, but I can clearly hear from you. Land and environmental issues in the Gambia are point for violence. As activists, what are you doing to ensure that government respect the right of landowners and also protect the environment? I was talking to you the other day about how the Gambia used to be a beacon of hope for environmental protection in Africa and globe, with Saudoda Kairaba Jawara taking the lead. Omar, are we on the part of are we on the part of environment feature in the country? If no, what can be done to bring back the lost glory? Because our former president was a champion of environment. He championed what we call the Banjul Declaration, protecting our flora and fauna.
Well, we have lost that glory and we have lost that footing, because if you look at Sadara Karaba Jawara, he was pretty much a pro-environmental, professional, or president or leadership, if I want to put it in a particular way. He championed the Banjul Declaration. He next we had the Department of Parks and Wildlife. He was able to at least establish the Ministry of Environment, and he makes sure there's a strong leadership, people who understand and envision, and they are working towards some of his ideas. But then down the line, if you hear Jamid, all what he's said about this guy was actually working towards this direction. But then there came the 2016 change of leadership in the country. We see a whole lot of issues environmental in the Gambia. So I will say we have lost that glory. And in order for us to be able to at least restructure ourselves and recalibrate our environmental protection initiatives in the country, it has to start from the leadership. Then from there, we can be able to trickle down to the local communities and get the citizens involved about, the realities in the country. And in saying that, places like National Environment Agency, Ministry of Environment, Department of Parks and Wildlife Management, Ministry of Fisheries, they have to get people who actually understand the current contemporary lessons in the Gambia. They have to actually involve people from the coastal communities, people who are impacted by mining or land appropriation issues, to be key stakeholders in any decision making. You cannot make a decision on my behalf. I am not dumb, I am not deaf. If I am in the Gambia or wherever I am in the world, get my consent in any decision that's going to affect me. If there's any policy being drafted, if there's anything that has at least get my community impacted, get the citizens involved who are going to be directly impacted. You cannot make this on behalf of Burfoot community with only selected view or individuals. It doesn't work like that. If they come to America, they have the tribal nation as a unit, as a commission at the EPA Council in Washington, D.C. I was in Taiwan on studies. They have the indigenous communities at the Ministry of EPA, Environmental Protection Agency in Taipei. They make sure the local community, the indigenous people who are part of those communities have a leading voice in terms of decision making, in terms of policy implementation. They are key stakeholders. This is what the Gambia is feeling. If you look at Gambia, all these coastal communities, who will tell you we have a representative at National Environment Agency or at Ministry of Environment, or in fact, we are being consulted of any development initiative in that particular community? None, zero. Yes, they can bring in consultants. Yes, they can bring in presumed expert in that field, but they have no idea about the customary dynamics of how things are governed in that particular community. They have no idea historically how land in fact belongs to certain families in the particular community. And then if you bring in all these experts or consultants, either locally from the Gambia or internationally, they have no idea about all these the dynamics. This is what's going to happen at the end. There's going to elite capture. They're going to bring in all these fancy policies and applications that don't actually fit to our local context. This is what we are seeing in the Gambia today. This is what we are seeing in Casamas today. Because the mining operation board in the Gambia and in Casamas and Nyafura and other part, local communities are never part of that decision making. They are never consulted. All what happens is we have given an approval for a certain kind of company, either fishing or mining operation or land developer, to start this development here. You took the 2-3 people on the street, they will tell you we have no idea. This land belongs to my forefathers. We used to do farming here, and we have no idea. State just said they're going to have a mining operation coming here. Where is the inclusion? Where is the consultation? Where is the feedback review of the people that they have talked to when they're doing all this assessment? So long we continue to disenfranchise the key people, the key stakeholders who are the rightful owners of those lands and those resources, we're going to have violence spawning in any natural resource rich communities in the Gambia, and also anywhere in the Gambia. You go to South Sudan, the same thing down there. Yes, Dave?
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. If you finish, I just want to basically augment your point again.
Down there, go to Nigeria, there's something down there with our rich communities down there. So Africa has to learn a lot. All these issues we're talking about are pretty much embedded in our African communities. Whatsoever is happening in terms of injustice in the Gambia, the same thing is in Africa. This is where the leadership in Africa have at least sit down, rethink, and say, hey, what are we getting wrong here? Adama Barrow could have learned a lot from the legacy of Sadara Karaba Jawara. The Bantu delegations down there read. We have to protect the remaining fauna and flora posterity. What is wrong in that? Get the right people in the right positions. Those who are not getting the job right, forget about the political alliance, forget about the political, affiliation or the political support that you're gonna have from those individuals. Bring in people who can get the work done. You live in America, all of us here live in developed countries. You're gonna get the work done if they let it go. Or you have that person to say, you know what, I'm gonna leave. Your position does not belong to one individual. You are there for your responsibility. If they cannot function, the duties are ascribed on your job function, leave, let somebody come. Whether it's a government department or a ministry, we have people who are so much entrenched in the system and they are doing barely nothing, absolutely. The policies that are actually supposed to safeguard and implement in the country, they have no clue about it. This is where we have all this problem. So in order for Gambia to be a beacon of environmental protection, we have to assess ourselves and look at that comprehensive root cause analysis and say, hey, you know what? This is where we have the problem with fisheries. This is where we have the problem with land acquisition. This is where we have a problem with mining in the Gambia, from geology, from Ministry of Environment, from NEA. We can't uproot people who are not actually doing the job that they're supposed to be doing in the country. And we should not be hiring people employing them based on political influence. We have to hire people based on, pretty much experience, knowledge, and expertise, pretty much, in the Gambia. We are not sort of that in the country.
I agree. Many thanks, Omar Sao to Malmo. It seems he have something to say. But Omar Malmo, I will ask you this question. Collaboration is indeed key. As we think about the future, what would you both identify as urgent action needed from government and civil society to mitigate land and environmental rights challenges in the Gambia?
Yes, like I said earlier, there is no homogeneity in the problem, because problems have different causes and factors leading to them across different parts of the Gambia. But the most important thing when it comes to identifying and tackling a problem is collaboration and of course inclusivity. The problem in the Gambia is not just unique to the Gambia. These are things, I think this dates back to even the colonial era, where if you look at the Congos and other places where militarization of their lands and of course dispossession, and assimilations took place. This is more or less what the people of Congo are now seeing in the Gambia. Like somebody mentioned in one of the videos not long ago in Salaji. If you're destroying, our people's homes, you're destroying their hard-earned properties and all that, without even having a proper dialogue or consultation, without having any court order, besides, even if government have a policy to say this land belongs to the state, if I build on it, and if you think what I'm doing is wrong, you don't just come and destroy my property. You go to the right authorities. Let's go to court. If the court gives the government the right that the land belongs to government, and then the court determine that they got to go and destroy people's properties or probably demolish, let them do that. But the government of the Gambia does not follow the right processes and protocols. That definitely they need to get all their legal documentation to say, you have a right and I have a legal opinion that I can basically destroy this property. But you give people 5 days, within this 5 days you go and destroy their properties to send them homeless. So for me, to tackle all of these problems depends on how we are, because we cannot have a, let's say, problem solving monocropping in a sense that to say one size fits all. the problem elsewhere might not be, the problem in another place. So you cannot use the same methodology or approach to solve all of these. But within Combo, I think there should be more consultation, and then the customary land rights and personnel within our communities should be, involved in all of these decision-making processes, and as well as they should be consulted, and their opinions should be reflective in these documents that we are developing. Now, to correct that, they've already developed a land policy, and I don't think this land policy is reflective of the ideals and the ideas of my community first, and I don't think it was developed for the greater good of the country, because first, when this government came into place, most times I said this government is basically, a government that came into place and people do not understand what exactly was happening. It was like, what I refer to as, let's say, people, oh, New Gambia, this is not what we voted for. This is not what the strength of the New Gambia lies on its vagueness. It was so vague that nobody knows what they voted for, because they keep saying, oh, this is not what any party that is affected, this is not what we voted for. So now to correct that, because the government established a lands commission, you remember. I refer to that commission in one of my research papers as the Death at Birth Lands Commission. Because it was death at birth, because they did nothing. The commission never did anything. The reason why we are talking about this policy is because a project had told the government of the Gambia, you need a land policy. So it is not from the wisdom and the thinking of the Gambia government that we have a fundamental problem that we need to solve. So therefore, this is there to please the donor. So it's a donor-driven, policy that is developed in the context of the donor, but not, to solve the common man's problem in the Gambia. So it's not reflective of the reality in our communities. So to have a document that reflects the reality and the aspirations of our local indigenous communities, we need to go back to those people and consult them thoroughly in the development of such documents. And we develop TORs that definitely, are more or less built on inclusivity and the participation of the original Gambian in the Gambia, not the donor and, of course, the expert who probably get the funds to actually develop a particular document for communities who know how they've been living 300 years before there was a government. So I think governments should do a thorough consultation. There should be that partnership and consultation within communities. And of course, there should be give and takes. We know everything belongs to communities, but of course, for government to function, government needs, land for infrastructure here and there. But if we are seeing that government is not even using the lands they're taking from us for those, government projects, but instead they are sharing it among themselves and their close associates and their business partners and funders, then we will feel that that is a simulation, dispossession, and of course, deliberate intent to send our people, homeless. And then at some point, there will be emergence of violent conflicts. And then, to be very honest with you, these issues of land issues have been on for long. I remember as a child in Bruford, I saw and they're like, today we are going to fight Tafanjai. But Yaya Jammeh was not coming there. It was Taf who was coming there with paramilitary and in my presence beating all people in my community. And I will go to that and I will still have that in my head. And Taf never thought at this age of his, some of us will go to school from primary school and get to a certain level and still query him that what you did to our people was wrong. So until the government of the Gambia realized that some of these things are actually going to filter down. In Sukuta Salaji, some of those kids who would have been 1, 2, 3 years old will go in next 20 years will be questioning the government of the current government of the Gambia, that the things they have done to our people. So this is fundamentally against the rights of people in those communities. So I think, to cut it short, there should be policy development should be based on empirical research. It should be based on evidence. It should be based on the needs of the country and not the needs of the donor. It cannot be donor driven, and it has to solve the common man's problem by including everybody, every stakeholder. But stakeholder participation and inclusion in policy development in the Gambia is non-existent, and people only develop policies because of projects are going to give them money, not to solve the common man's problem. So inclusion and participation of our people and their voices in these documents will definitely go a long way in kind of solving these problems, and not just to develop a policy today. Oh, we have this policy developed today, and you go and destroy people's houses without even taking them to court or actually getting that legal justification for your actions. I can sit in Bruford and say, okay, I'm in the VDC. Every land now belongs to the VDC, and start destroying people's properties. It cannot happen like that. You don't come into government. And a foreman there, but we got to a point that because more like about they don't take it all the community lands. They come to our communities and be taking our lands. Are they more Gambian than us?
No.
And then you look at it contextually. We might think that land issues are not happening in Upper River region and other places. There are land conflicts everywhere in the Gambia. I have gone with Action Aid across the Gambia. I've seen communities, even in Kudang, where some communities, meaning Kudang Kole, Wall Sindi, La Wulo, Kono, just to give them some
They
places.
take the land now.
They now claim that they own these lands.
Lands.
So
Absolutely.
government is that is the same thing government is doing in our communities. When did government come into place that ministers are having land in prime locations in Brufut that I, a native, born and raised, cannot even buy a plot in my own community? We are all going to be aliens in our own communities. We are going to be, more or less coming to rent again in our own communities. So you realize that even the rent gap, if you look at different theories of human geography, you realize that rent gap theory is now feeding in Brufut. People who are born and raised cannot even rent houses in our own community because of the exorbitant prices. Look at land prices in Brufut and compare to other places.
Malmo, we are running out of time. I think we just absolutely. That's a very interesting conversation, but we are running out of time. I think we are left with 5 minutes because the show is exactly 1 hour. And then, David, you had Omar Malmo talking about this very important issue. Your report, which is very comprehensive, what are some of the recommendations that you put forward for government to make sure that these land issues do not turn into violence? Because already it's a flashpoint for violence. I had residents in Salaji saying, we are not ready yet. We will do everything to protect our land. That's serious. That means they can do everything to protect, including using violence. So what are the recommendations you put forward in your report that you co-author with communities in the coastal area? Just in 2 minutes, because we are left with 4 minutes. Then I will come to both to Omar's and in 3 minutes.
Okay. Quick one. I just have to again say thank you to the both Omars.
David, can you hear?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I've said basically.
Yeah, go ahead. I can. Yeah.
I have to say I'm very heartened because you can say Omar is my nephew is 1 generation younger than me. You can say, so I know there's somebody who can take this fight on. I'm still here for a while. I'm not that old, but it's just very heartening to see that he's much more eloquent than me. By the way, yeah. So just to see him standing there.
No, you both are eloquent. The two Omars, the David. I'm just impressed.
Yeah, but I'm actually have to say this because we come from a culture which is quite important. I'm still his uncle, by the way. So that means I'm his elder. So I am telling him I'm very happy. I am very happy. I'm very pleased. I've been following him for a very long time, but just to have him on the platform with myself and then have him to express what I feel inside is really heartening. But I'm going to come back to what Saho was saying now, and then Omar also touched on. Consultation. When I asked them, the land policy guys, I'm like, what I did, by the way, I'm going to say it here. I just basically, I went to the World Bank guy. I didn't touch the Gambia. I went to the expert the World Bank actually put on ahead of on what you call the lead World Bank expert on the land. I had a video conference call with him. I basically told him that like the people are not aware of this draft policy. And then the governments are telling him that, it's been published. I say, they put it on the internet. 75% of people can read it. And even that 75%, if it's 25% that can read, how many people got time to read a 100-page document? You got to be somebody as mad as me and the two Omars who Ahmad Manja. Nobody has got time. You know what I mean? So I told him that, and then the guy, the Gambian guy, sent me an email. Just very quick. He sent me an email to say, we actually consulted. I asked him, where did you go? He said, we went to Bakau, we went to Manjai, we went to Sukuta, we went to Gunjur, and we went to Faraba. I'm like, what? So that's his consultation in Combo, basically. So yeah, so there's no consultation. So we tell them we have a participatory.
Quickly, David. I was in the same World Bank headquarters in DC, and I put it forward to them. How do you guys ensure that your project funded that have the environmental implications are actually consulting local communities to make sure there's no state capture, to make sure the local people who are supposed to benefit of this project are consulted? And the lady Dana tell me, usually we have no control over that because we go to what the government organized for us, the structure they put for us. So you see, these are two different narratives here. I was in the World Bank office in 2020 asking them about the same question you asked the consultant here.
Yeah, because I mean, you got to understand the World Bank, the external body, they funded, they have some conditions, but the implementation and how the whole process, the methodology has got nothing to do with them, basically. Yeah, they wash their hands of that. But coming back to saying this question, and also this is quite important, the potential for conflict. I think we Gambians, we all one family, as we keep on saying. But then there's a potential for conflict. But we hope that cool head will prevail back home. But emotions are very high. Emotions are high because it's an indigen of Sukuta, whose father's land, his grandfather's land, his great grandfather, going back 500 years or so. He wants to build that because he has to expand. There's a need. There is a need for them to expand because they don't fit where they are originally. But you knock their houses down, and next to them is a man from Badibu or from Kiang or from Jara. No disrespect to them, yeah. But that's not their inheritance. That's the guy from Sukota's inheritance. It's no problem. Everybody in Gambia sharing, no problem. We don't have any problem with this. We need to make this very clear. But we should not be victims on our own land. We should not be the victims on our own land. That's unacceptable. But we pray to God that cool heads will prevail back home. But it's not very good. It's not very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Many thanks, gentlemen. We are almost exhausted our time, but I think I have to broaden this conversation next time. It's so interesting conversation about environmental issues, but unfortunately, that brings us to the end of this. So I will give you guys 30 seconds each to do a closing remark. And many thanks for joining us this morning on the Alcamba Time. I will start with Omar Malmo. Just 30 seconds, your closing remark.
Hey, Sandy, yeah, it was nice talking to you. You know, it was nice to be on the platform with AJ, as well my uncle. So, I hope this conversation gets on and, to continue to raise awareness. We still with it, not just the people of Sukuta, because we are all victims of the same, state capturing people's land. So we hope that the government of the Gambia rethinks and do the needful and do what is right for everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Omar Sao, 30 seconds.
Well, I want the Gambia government to understand that with all this mining,
he was even to the community, and we will definitely do that.
Yeah. I want the Gambia government to realize that with all this land grabbing that in the Congo, and as well as the approval of fish meal and then fishing corporations licenses they are giving in the Gambia and mining, they are creating economic disparity within local communities. They have disturbed that social fabric that was in the coastal communities. There's no social safety net for Gambian people. If the livelihood of the Gambian people are taken away from them, it's going to result in more crime, more social contention, and then more unemployment within these communities. Let them think about how can we provide affordable housing for the Gambian people. How can we nurture a structure that is going to help the Gambia to flourish? But right now, there's no such vision for the coastal community of the Gambia people. So all of those is created and aided and abetted by the Gambia government. Let them understand that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dave, finally 30 seconds.
Okay. Obviously, asked me a question which I didn't answer anyway, so I'll just use this opportunity for that. Our recommendation, number one, priority is moratorium. We want you to implement an immediate moratorium, all further allocations of land, designated state land, public purpose land. Take a break now for a minute. Let's all step back. Okay. And then we know where we go from here because emotions are very high. And then we said, you need to promote fairness. It's very important there's fairness. Again, I'm coming back to where the indigents, you knock their houses down. And we also historical injustices like Omar mentioned. He was young. I wasn't in the Gambia when it happened. But my uncle and my uncles and my great uncle, the military brutalized them and they never recovered. They never recovered from that brutality, really. They passed away. I can tell you that. I don't want to exaggerate it, but Omar can tell you, Bake Jara and Bakajali, they never recovered, okay? And because of Mustafa Njai. We also incorporate the colonial. Everything has to come from outside. What is wrong with us? We have our own, there are cultures, there are ways of us doing things. I know we get funding, but also sometimes if you look at some of these draft policies, just laugh. I'm like, come on, man, what is this? So it's a template. It's a formulaic template they follow in tick boxes. They just tick in boxes, okay? And then we said, ensure meaningful participation. Again, both Omars have touched on this. You have to go speak to the people who own the land. All right. Anyway, this land thing we can have a conversation for this another 10 hours, I can tell you. But yeah, I'm very grateful. I'm very honored to be on a platform with my nephew.
Absolutely.
And then I'm very grateful for your invitation. I think we need to do this again, really.
Yeah. Yeah, we will definitely do this. For those watching, that is the final take with me, Seni Marina. And many thanks to our distinguished guests, Omar Malmo Sambu and Dave Mane from the UK. You can have a copy of Dave's report on this land issue on our website, www.alcambatimes.com, or you can send Dave a private message to get a copy of the report. So for those watching, until we come your way, many thanks for joining us. Thank you, Dave and Malmo, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Tune into the final take with MK Marina every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Okay.